Okay, I think we're set up. Okay, hi everybody. I'm so super excited to have one of our mamas here. This is Autumn, and I'm going to introduce her in just a second and have her tell you all about her son. But one of the reasons that we love doing these celebrations so much is that these are real people and these are real lives that have been touched by the power of neuroplasticity. And I think it's just so powerful to hear from somebody about, gosh, what was it really like before you started doing neural rehabilitation, and what is it really like afterwards? And I think just hearing that firsthand is just so powerful. So welcome, Autumn. I'm super happy to have you here. Would
Thank
you mind just kind of telling us a little bit more about your son, anything that you want to share about him, his age, and then tell us what it looked like before you started working in the program.
Yeah, so my son Titus is 11, turning 12 this next week, actually.
Happy
Um,
birthday.
yeah, and so he is, uh, I think all his parents feel this, but just one of a kind. Just the sweetest young man, very respectful, very kind. He loves his brain is amazing as far as inventive, creative. He has stacks full of journals of things he's invented that, when he gets older, he will
I
then
love that.
create these things when he has the tools and the
Yep.
supplies. And all his Christmas lists are always like, he needs a welder and he needs duct tape and he needs springs. Like, it's always just so like, okay, where we go? Wow,
Beautiful.
this is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Um, and so he's always, since a young age, just been very creative and inventive. But we did notice we homeschooled him all the way until this year. And when he was in the last couple years, we started to notice his younger sister passing him in his reading and spelling a little bit. And that was sort of the first clue of like, okay, what's going on here? Because he was so smart in all these other areas that that almost got a little bit hidden because
Yeah.
he could read, just not really well, but he never could spell. So that one was just a tough one. Um, and so that was sort of one of our first clues into trying to think, okay, what can we do? And I had tried all different areas of styles for spelling for that kid, because we had the ability, because we were at home, so we did tactile things. Did he like memorizing? Did he like doing it to a song and dance? No, he did not. Did he like, whatever. We just tried a ton of different things and nothing really would ever click, or if it did, it was only for a short bit and then it would be
Yeah.
forgotten.
Yeah.
So in this last year, we finally were able to, we live in a rural town, so
Mhm.
it's hard to find, resources that we need. So we were able to travel a few hours and go to the city, and he was able to get tested, do a dyslexia screening, and he showed up to be very dyslexic. And so that was very hard to hear because we were just so surprised by that. I didn't know a lot about dyslexia yet. And he's just so smart. So it was just a little bit confusing. And so it was very dejecting because she was like, there's not really much hope for him. You can try one of the box programs, but it probably won't work, but go for it. Here's a few of them. He'll always need some sort of support, electronic support for the rest of his life. And so I, I didn't want to accept that. I was like, that
Mhm.
can't be. That
Mhm.
just cannot be. There's got
Mhm.
to be something, because our whole attitude is like, let's do what we can to help him, whatever it takes.
Yep.
Um, and so I was praying about it for like the next few days. And then your program showed up randomly on my Facebook.
Oh,
And
I love that.
it was so cool because our family has actually had some training with brain
Yeah.
retraining previously, with working through traumas,
Yep.
that some of our accidents and things our family has had. And so we know that brain retraining works.
Yep.
And so I was like, oh my gosh, this is for dyslexia. And so my husband was out of town, well, out of country, actually. And
Yep.
so we had just sparse little times where we could talk on the phone and it'd be cutting in and out. I think he was I don't know, some village in Africa or some crazy thing. And
Crazy. I
so when
love
he
it.
finally called, I'd be like, been waiting. And so when we had our few little minutes to talk, cutting in and out, I was like, I found a program. It's going to work. Can I please get it? Like, trying to just quickly say what I could. And so he was just like cutting back in and out. Yes, whatever it takes for Titus, we'll do it. And
I love
so that night, bought it, got
Yep.
on the call, and then just within a couple days was able to already start, which was
Yep.
so wonderful because
Yep.
again, rural town, but
Yep.
we could do it.
That's right. Oh my
So
gosh. Well, one of the things, Autumn, that I want to just highlight that I think is so important is the message that's out there that you can do nothing about it. And you are definitely not the first person that has had that news. And that's just awful. I mean, like,
yeah.
here is this brilliant little light. And
Mhm.
you, as a mom, you want the best for your kids
Yeah.
and you want
Yeah.
them to grow into the best version of themselves. And like, how can you be how can you tell me that this is not going to get any
Oh,
better? But
yes.
I'm honest when I say like that happens all the time. And so
Hmm.
to then believe though deep in your heart that there has got to be something different. Neuroplasticity is really a thing. Like I know scientifically that the brain is capable of change. And so I think like here's going to be the best part of this story. Like I just love this. So just in reviewing his data, just so everybody else kind of knows where he was at, we do an assessment at the beginning that's phonological awareness. So, how much can the brain actually hear the sounds, eliminate part of the sounds, put the sounds back together, like just in your head? How possible was that? So, in looking back at his scores, he got about half of it. So, out of the 42 items, he had 27 of them correct. So,
Mhm.
maybe a little bit more than half. And then when he was done, I mean, like he only had 2 ears. So he got all of that
Yeah.
uh, nearly perfect. And the brain was able to actually hear all the sounds,
Yeah.
manipulate all the sounds. I'm looking at his reading score from beginning. So you're right. Like, yes, he was able to read. He had a score at the 39th percentile, and we use the wide range achievement test 5. So it's not like Dr. Troy's made up assessment. Like,
Yeah.
this is a real norm referenced assessment. But he went to the 9th.
Yeah.
And spelling went from the 4th percentile, kind of as you were saying, like it's a little bit rough here, to the 82nd percentile. So I guess
That one was huge.
those are numbers, right? But tell me from the real live mom, I get to see this in action perspective. Like, what did it look like for him as he was going through this rehabilitation process? Like, and then what does it look like now?
Yeah. Well, the wonderful thing is that he had done brain retraining before from some PTSD.
Yep.
And so he knows that it works. And
Yeah.
so at a young age, he already knew it worked. So when I said, okay, here's the program, we're going to do 10 to 15 minutes a day for this
Yep.
many weeks, we only missed out of 13 weeks, we only missed 3 days. Like we did it. We traveled with it. We did it. We made sure to have that happen.
And
And
that's so important. We'll come back to
yeah,
that
it's
later.
so important. It has to
Yep.
be. That's
Yep.
exactly what you have to do. But he was willing to do it, so that was helpful.
Huge.
And he wouldn't be begrudgingly like, "Oh, we gotta go do my brain." He was like,
Yep.
I'd be like, "Okay, let's get this done." Yep, here he came. And so just even again, the mindset. I know you guys talk through that a lot, but he had a mindset of, "I can do this,
Uh-huh.
and it will work," and
Yep.
it did. And
Yep.
so during the process, he did well with that. And I was continually encouraging him. And it'd be so cool because it'd be like, okay, Titus, do you realize like 2 weeks ago, you couldn't even spell this word? Like this word was really hard. And a light bulb would go on realizing, oh, you're right. And he'd be so excited about it. And so his confidence just grew so much. And then he's in a charter school right now, and he brought in a paper that he'd written like a story he'd written a long time ago, and so you could barely read it, but it was pages worth because he loved to do that anyway.
Yep.
And so he'd like tell his teacher, well, okay, so this was before my brain retraining. I can now spell a lot better. And so they'd get a kick out of it and to be like, okay, that's okay, Titus. Or when he'd do a word, he'd be like, well, now that I have my brain retraining, I know how to spell that. So he would always, so in his parent conferences, they would tell me these things that he was just so proud of himself. And we, of course, are so proud of him. And now even for reading, like we would check out a library book and I would have to renew it like as many times as the library would allow you to renew this
Yeah.
chapter book. And now it's like by the time we need to turn it in 10 days later, he's been done, ready to
Wow.
turn it
Oh, I
in.
love that.
And when I first realized that, because I was like, okay, bud, you need me to renew that book? No, I was done 3 days ago. I'm like, seriously?
That's so
So that's just really cool just to
wow.
see his confidence grow. And you know, going into junior high already has challenges, his first time going in. And
It
so
does. Of course it does.
yeah,
Yeah.
so we really wanted to make sure that to help him the best he could with his academics too going in. And he's
Yeah.
just been able to go in. Oh, and the best part, so he's on honor roll and he has straight A's, and his
Good for
highest
him.
grade is in English with a
I love it.
98%.
Oh, that is magical.
He can't believe it. He's like, how is my English grade higher than my science grade? Because he loves science.
Oh, that's amazing.
So it's
Oh,
just
wow.
so
I
cool.
love
It's
that.
just wonderful.
So I want to go back to one of the things that you said because it's so, so important. And I think the people that understand about brain plasticity understand also the relationship between that and repetition. And so the consistency and showing up every single day and being able to retrieve things from long-term memory and bring them into the working memory and kind of reuse that consecutively day after day really, really matters. And so
Yeah.
I know sometimes people are like, well, how do you make the space for that? So will you talk a little bit about what you did to make it be agreeable or to make the space fun or how did you set up your learning environment?
So we made sure we're in a little rental cabin while we're building our house, so we don't have a lot of space. And
Yep.
so I made sure, well, we did it during the summer, and so it was the other kids were outside. There was going to be no distractions. If they were inside and needed to be inside, we waited. If they needed to come in for some only emergencies was all they were allowed. um, then we would pause and we would take a minute, Titus, go get a drink of water. And so we really just made sure to be able to allow him to fully focus right where we
Yeah.
were and there weren't the distractions around. And so obviously that was harder in this smaller area, but we made sure to still make that a priority just because it just is when there's other stuff happening, you just can't focus. And in the
Yeah.
beginning, he was a little self-conscious too, because, you know, his other brother and sister could do those things. And so I just made sure to be very respectful of that and
Yeah.
honor him in making sure we had a quiet place. And then we would do some fun rewards like at that, you know, when we do a
Yeah.
module and be like, all right, buddy, what do you want to do? We completed a module, you know, and so we'd go do something fun for it. And we just made it enjoyable. And it was helpful for him to already be interested in doing it. That, and I know some kids are not, but for him,
Yeah.
he was because he knew it would work.
Yeah.
And so he was willing to, but I think just making sure that we were able to give him, I mean, 10, 15 minutes, that's not long. So
It's not long.
we can get that in there and we can have full focus. And I don't even think we ever even had a day where we were like, let's pause. We need to come back to this later. We
Yeah.
didn't have any of those.
Wow.
Again, just because he knew it would work because he's experienced that before, even at a young age.
Mhm.
So,
Wow. And, I think therein lies the growth mindset, right? So
mm,
when you believe that your effort equals your success, you can
yes,
do a whole bunch more things than if you believe that it's fixed and, I'm either smart or I'm not smart. And if you have that
yeah,
binary view of yourself, it's much more
yeah,
challenging to kind of overcome that. And we do have clients that are experiencing that because they have had some really negative feedback, whether it's
yeah,
from school or peers or
for sure.
themselves. It can be hard to do, but
Mm,
we do always talk about how important it is to remain positive and to make it light and fun. And I think everything about the way that you talk about your son and your experience, it's just very obvious that he felt loved and supported
mhm,
during that process. And
yeah,
that's so huge.
yeah.
Okay, so if you were to give advice to any other parent that was about to do the exercises, like having just gone through this, knowing that there are tough days and easier days, like what advice would you give to somebody if they're right in the thick of it? Like, uh,
Mm.
what was your experience and how would you advise them?
Maybe a few things. One thing that we did with Titus in the beginning when we sat down and talked to him about his results was we talked about sort of the superpowers of someone with dyslexia.
Yep.
And so we took this spin of this positive,
Uh-huh.
wonderful, amazing thing. And we pulled up lists of people, of scientists,
Yep.
and all these famous people who have dyslexia that he knew of, Nikola Tesla, like just all these different names
Yep.
and that he knows. And so we made sure, so even if it's in the middle of it or in the beginning, of just putting a positive outlook on it, because it is not this doom and gloom thing, which people out in the world, so that's sort of what you think, but
Right.
it's not. And so we helped him just be like, oh my god, like, what? Tell us you have, like,
Yeah.
okay, let's talk about the benefits. Yes, there's hard parts, but
Mhm.
how can we work through those hard parts? And what benefits do you have that maybe another kid, because maybe you're seeing, oh, I can't read or spell. Okay, but what else can you do maybe
Yep.
stronger? And
Yep.
so just taking that again mindset
Yep.
and creating this positive outlook on it, and
Mhm.
not this, oh no, you have this, what will we do? Which
Yep.
when I got the results was sort of my first thing until I dived in
Course.
and started to do all the research about it. And I was like, wait a minute. No, okay, let's flip the narrative here
Yep.
on this.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
even for those kids that are in the middle of it and feeling dejected, finding a way to flip the narrative and create it as a positive. And yes, it is hard in some times, and these parts are difficult, but let's look at all the other bonuses you have
Uh-huh. Yep.
because of this.
That's
And
exactly
so
right.
that was one thing that I encourage parents to do, is to create that in their own mindset, create a
Mhm.
positive mindset, because they feed off of you also.
For sure they do.
Yeah. So that is one thing. And then again, just the consistency. I think that was vital
Yep.
and crucial. And I have shared about anybody that I can talk to. I'm an elementary teacher. And so I've tried to talk to our school about this program, and I talk to parents about this program. And I just like shout to the rooftops because I've seen it
Oh,
work. And it's an answer to prayer for sure. And so we're very
oh,
thankful for it.
oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for saying that. But I mean, I think the big thing that is just so important to me to get across is this message of hope for families.
Yes.
Like this is not a sentence,
Yeah.
a life sentence that's so negative.
Exactly.
You can never get out of this. Like he still has all of those beautiful gifts that you're talking
Mhm.
about, the
Mhm.
superpowers of his creativity, the
Mhm.
superpowers of his spatial thinking and all of the engineering parts that are like so prevalent and strong. And at the same time, now he can hear and respond to language, and he has the capacity to hear all of the sounds and words, and he can
Yeah.
pull them apart, and he can put them together, and he can decode words, and he can spell words. And so, yeah, could he still work a little bit on some of the spelling patterns? Yeah, it's okay.
Mhm.
But is he not missing any sounds anymore when he's trying to spell? That's exactly right, you
Yeah.
know? So I think just knowing that both, it can be both and. You can
Yeah.
still have all of these incredible gifts, and you cannot have to struggle with
Yeah.
reading and spelling the same way that you did before. And I think just getting that message of hope out there to families, especially in those late nights where I know, I mean, like they always say mothers could be stronger than the FBI and researching. Like if you find out that something is
Yeah.
going on for your child, like you just
Yeah.
became an FBI agent in the middle of
Yeah.
the night, figure out how can I help this to go
Mhm.
better for my child, because we
Mhm.
just can't have it any other way.
Mhm.
And to know that there really are tools out there that can reorganize the way that the brain functions for language. And
Mhm.
like, here's a real live example of a real live sweet little boy who has like in real time seen the benefits. So
Yeah.
like in terms of the time frame, can you just blow people's mind and let them know like how long many years did this take you to to overcome?
It took 12 and a half weeks.
So, I mean, with the consistency, right? Like that it doesn't look like that if
Mm-mm.
you don't help the brain to be able to recall what you did yesterday and then bring it into the working memory and start to continue that journey and build from there. Like that wouldn't look like that if you didn't have it
Nope,
every single day.
exactly.
And so, one of the benefits of the way that we do things is it's not once or twice a week, because I think that happens a lot of times. Like, okay, great, tutoring's the only option. And you
Hmm.
do that once or twice a week, but from a plasticity standpoint,
Yeah.
like that's not going to be as effective as if you
No,
have the 10 to 15 minutes. Like it's not hours and hours,
no, no.
but a totally different way that he's able to respond to reading and spelling now.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just amazing. I mean, he's completely transformed and changed, and now he can read and better, and now he can spell. And
Yep.
I mean, I'll see him read these giant words, that like when he's doing a presentation preparing for school, and there's some big words that I'm even like, okay, yeah, yep, you got that right. That's amazing. And so this program, anybody that's on the fence, just do it. It works. It works. You put the time in and the dedication, and it's life-changing for your kid.
Oh my gosh. Well, I can't thank you enough for your time and just the realness of like, hey, this is really what it's like to go through this experience. Here's what can really happen for your child. Because I think it's so inspirational. And you yourself are just so inspirational. So thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for your time.
Yeah.
It was an absolute blessing to be with you and your family.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for all you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.